All right. I'm already getting hot from the alcohol. I'm just going to check in and see if anyone else is coming. Sometimes, I always am reminded when I do any type of video of how Gary Vee talks about how he did the wine cellar without anyone watching him for months and months and months. And, not that I'm here for the attention, but I'm here for you. So I'm hoping some of you will join. But we will hang out and see how long this takes to get started. So I know that. Hang out and see how long this takes to get started. It's kind of meta. So there's a few questions already from the group, and if no one shows up, I will start talking about that. But people ask me why drunk Q&A, and it's because I'm a social drinker and I don't have any friends. So just us. I'm kidding, but these questions, I'd like to have a fireside chat one day when this group grows even bigger. And in the meantime, I have a fireplace and I have some alcohol and we're having a chat. The alcohol of choice today, still working on this bottle of Glenfoundry. But it was a little too rough for me today and I couldn't quite take it. So after I finished that first one, I went to my go-to, which is Agavero. It's a tequila for sipping. It's super smooth. It just feels good going down. Okay, let me make a few comments here in the group and we'll get started. Excuse me. Okay. So I have a little notepad with the questions I've gotten so far. And well, let's start with Salmon Days. So if you were watching, I had Salmon Days this week, last weekend. And if you've been a part of the group, you know that about a week after each one of my art show events, I always do a keeping it real post to tell you, how I actually did and what the actual results were. And because it's not all rainbows and sunshine. So this is my booth at Salmon Days. That's not my booth. What happened? My booth at Salmon Days was this one. We can see if we can get the camera to focus. There we go. And if you have watched my video on the Complete Guide to Art Fairs, you'll know why everything is set up this way. And there's my puppy. So I think personally that I had a very successful show. Now, if we measure success by the amount of money earned by this 1 week point, then you probably would know that, well, then I would have to say that I have earned, zero. Or maybe I should say that I had made $6,000. I did sell one piece. It is this piece right here on the side there. See that piece right there. And I say that the number is 0 right now because I gave them an offer that I already sent them the bill, but I gave them an offer to get a second piece for half off. It's their anniversary, and I'm using their anniversary as an opportunity to offer them or to upsell them on another piece because they're interested in 2 pieces. They're interested in that one, which is a very tall piece called Solitude, and they're also interested in a piece called Eternity Beach. And I sent them the invoice, but then I said, wait, hold on. I know you guys said you only wanted one, but it's your anniversary, right? Because the 2 together were $9,000 with tax, almost $10,000. And that's actually $10,240 because tax in Washington is ridiculous. So just over 10 grand. And I thought, let's give them an offer and see what they say. So that puts in the bill at what would be 10,200, but I gave them half off, so it really brings it down to 8,000, and with tax 8,000. So I'm waiting to hear on a response for that, but if not, then I still have the sale for the one piece. So Salmon Days nominally wasn't a complete bust, but I feel like this show is much bigger in potential. My booth was set up in this same way that I did at Redmond, and I feel like it elevated me like head and shoulders above the other booths at the art fair, and it had a two-ply effect. And the major effect was that I didn't have 1,000 people walking into my booth all day long. Most people would look at my booth from the outside, and I would just be chilling there at the desk that was in the middle and not interact with them. They would make their comments to each other, and then they would walk on. I feel like my booth, in a way, was foreboding because of the price it looked like it entailed. So that was one effect. The other effect was that the people who did come into my booth were, not all of them, but the ones who came in and talked to me, they were the type of people who aren't put off by a booth that's set up like this, who aren't put off by a high-end piece of artwork and the price tag that comes with it. So the result was that I made some really amazing connections. So I've already had 2 fantastic meetings. One is with a home builder, and someone asked me about interior designers, and I would tell you over and over that I hate them. Okay, but it's not always the case. I hate most independent interior designers because they very rarely get clients who can afford to pay for the designer as well as original artwork. Okay, mostly they're paying for the designer and the furniture, and that's it. And then the artwork is a cheap thing that the designer buys from some wholesale source. But what I ran into, who was attracted to my booth, was the owner of this construction company. And it's a 20-person team, 3 architects, 3 designers, and then 14 construction workers, and they build mega high-end homes. And what I got was a meeting with that crew, all in-house. Actually got to show them my work. I brought my work to their office. I showed them Edge of Solace. We had a bunch of discussions, and what I got from that is I'm actually made these designs or these renders for one of the homes that they're building. And this is one of them. Let me see if I can get you the one with the dimensions. So what I did was I did these renders for these huge pieces. That's a 100-inch Tree of Fire, and then a 120-inch Edge of Solace. And this is a render, what they call a vertical or an elevation of what a piece that they're building, or a house that they're building in the next 5 months. So that means 3 months from now, they're going to need artwork for this enormous wall. This space for this wall is, if that will, so that space that the piece is sitting in is 13 feet wide by 8 feet tall, and it's above 2 fireplaces. So this is a huge wall, and they don't have anything really to put in that spot. All they have is, this beautiful design for this house on the water, and they're gonna, they need something to put there. So I met them at the right time, and I gave them these renders, and these are definitely the type of people who can afford my work and afford it huge, because either one of those is 10 to 15 grand. Plus the frame. So that was one success. And the other success was I had a meeting in Yakima, which is 2 hours away, enormous restaurant, brand new. Yakima is up and coming, and they're looking for some 80-inch pieces plus the frame. So I think there's some really good things that came out of Salmon Days, but they're not immediate things. So in the next 6 months is going to tell me whether or not Salmon Days was successful. But on a whole, I think that these local art fairs are something that I'm not really geared for any longer. And I really need to be in those bigger expos, the national expos. So I don't know if I'm going to do Salmon Days again next year. We'll see. But it is local, and it's pretty easy to do, minus the same day setup, which is a pain in the ass. And we'll see. So Q&A. with only these 2 questions, guys, I'm not going to get too lit. And this isn't going to get too fun, at least not for me. But Walter, well, actually, Jeff, we'll start with Jeff Walker's question. It says, what is my process for following up with clients? So this is 1 week after Salmon Days. And for the last week, all I have been doing is following up. I had about 15 to 16 emails and phone numbers that I collected. Now, if you watched the complete guide to art fairs, you saw that, I have the digital sign-in sheet, and I got as many people to sign up as I could. And that was really successful. But what I realized is that at where I'm at is I don't need a ton of people signing up for my art list anymore. What I need is the right people. So I don't really even offer my mailing list to people unless I know that they're interested in the piece. So I have like 13 or 14 people who gave me, all except one, their email and their phone. And out of all of those people, I've only been able to get in touch with 3. Everyone else has flat out ignored me, actually 4. So everyone else has flat out ignored me, or the 4th one actually said, I don't think I'm going to move forward with this piece right now because he's undecided as whether he's going to put a piece of art over his fireplace or he's going to have commissioned paintings for his daughters. Like I said, the people who came into my booth are the right kind of people. And the people who walk by, my booth just looked too expensive for them, and that was good. It limited my interaction and allowed me to connect with the right people. Anyway, so 4 out of 14 people actually just connected with me. 1 of them has already purchased a piece. 2 of them are the architecture and the restaurant owners. So 4 out of 14 is actually, percentage-wise, pretty awesome. And we'll see, and I'll let you guys know how those develop, because those are some pretty big projects coming on board here in like the next 3-4 months. So pretty excited about those. But my process for following up with all those people was pretty constant. Art show was Saturday, Sunday. Monday Saturday and Sunday, if I met someone on Saturday, then I had messaged them any of their requests from the time they met me. So they would ask for a picture, or they would ask for a picture with a frame, or even a quote, and I would text it to them and email it to them. And then after that, I continue those follow-ups. The first week is the week when you are going to capture the sale. Okay, after that, you let them know, okay, it looks like you're not ready for this piece of art, and I'm just gonna add you to my mailing list and I'll keep you up to date. And then after that first week of, message once a day to try to connect with that person at different times of day, what you would do is you would just reduce your frequency to messaging them once a week for the next few weeks. And if you are not able to connect with them over those next few weeks, then they will just exist on your mailing list for as long as they want or wish to be a part of it. And perhaps they will return to you as a sale. Otherwise, they're pretty much useless and you forget about them. And it's very, I treat people on my mailing list and potential clients in a very flippant manner after that first week, because after that first week, they're not worth my time and energy anymore. They're not worth me continually telling them about my work and asking them to take a look and to try to meet them and whatnot. So my process for following up with clients is 1 week of consistent following up, and then once a week connections after that. And then I just write them off because it's not worth your time. You need to be connecting with new people and closing new sales with people who have already collected your work. Okay. An example of that would be tomorrow I'm going to install a piece that I sold at Madison Park, that Edge of Solace. It was a 1-day show, 4 hours, and I managed to sell the piece. So I offered for them to help them install it. Not that I have any more expertise than the regular person, but I guess I do it more often than not. So I'm going to help them install it, and I'm going to tell them about how they can, their 15% discount. If you looked at my video about following up with people and about what you do after the sale, so I drop a discount on them. That's a limited time. I'll tell them all about it. Maybe I'll bring a second piece for them to check out. and then you stay in touch. Okay. I think I got Jeff's question, so let's move on to the next one. Walter asks, have you tried to connect with interior designers from Beverly Hills, New York, and the Hamptons, and other major cities, and how do you even go about doing that? Okay, so I hate interior designers. I've said this before, but if I could just reiterate in a sentence or two, interior designers are very focused on their own vision. It's almost like they're hyper selfish people. The most extreme example I had of that is I had a guy who's building a multi-million-dollar house. It's like a $4 million house on the water in Madison Park, and really liked one of my pieces and got his designer involved. And the designer literally told him, I don't think this piece of art that you love fits in with my vision of your home. The owner's vision, the owner's art that he loved, that the owner loves, doesn't fit into the designer's vision of the owner's home, and told the owner, let's not buy this. So, you know, that's the latest example of how designers really only care about their furniture and the colors in the room. And for the most part, I hate them. So that's not to say you shouldn't go after them, especially the ones who deal with clients who can buy your art, depending on your price point. If you're in the $300 to $1,000 range, then that's pretty much all of them. But if you're above that, then you have to be more selective with where you put your time. So if you wanted to start with designers in the big cities, the big commerce areas like LA and Beverly Hills and New York City, you need to go find the ones that are doing the business that you want to do. And that's really just a, yeah, that designer really, really blows. And I actually know who they are, but I'm not going to write them a nastygram unless I drink a lot of alcohol. Yeah, so let's say you were looking in New York, and the bad thing about me doing this live is that I don't get to show you my screen, but we could look up someone from New York right now, pop them up, New York City, interior designer, high-end, and then find out who they are, look at the projects they've done, and look to see if any of their renders or any of the pictures of the work they've done already include art that is similar to yours. And if you're a photographer, I can almost guarantee you that they don't, because photography is still not considered a very strong art form. So, you know, you're down on your luck. But suppose they do, suppose you see something in there. First of all, you want to try to find work that's similar to yours in their portfolio. If not, don't be daunted, but if you do, then that's awesome, and you should definitely reach out to that person. But then you go to their contact information, and hopefully it says, you know, Maria at idesignshithomes.com, and then you can just write her directly, okay? And if you're using some email service that provides you read receipts, you'll know when she gets your email. But if you email her and you don't hear back, then you call her, okay? You're going to call her anyway, but if you don't hear back, you call her and you make that connection, all right? But let's say you're looking and you find a designer, and the designer doesn't have a direct email. It just says, you know, info at, you know, I like pretty colors. So what you do is you take the designer's name and you take it over to Rocket Reach, which I've talked about a lot in my videos, and you can find that. It's one of the first videos in the marketing section on how to use Rocket Reach to find direct contacts for people. And you can do this regardless. Even if you find the person and they have a direct email, you can look up Rocket Reach and find their personal email and email them both at the same time. And then you introduce yourself with one or two pieces of your work and a link to your website. Or even better, a PDF of your work that's a document and not a photo, because photos get caught in spam webs more often than documents will. So you could do a less than 1 megabyte document with some of your pictures and how she might be able to use them, he or she, and send that to them, okay? But you have to reach out, and then you have to reach out again, and then you have to follow up, because you're not the only person who wants that person's business, and it's important that you are persistent. I've had a lot of people who have actually purchased work from me who have thanked me for my persistence. And the people who I've annoyed by my continual follow-ups and my demanding for an answer from them, fuck them. Literally think of them as trash that you finally get to throw away, because silence is not an answer. You need to go for no. There's a whole book on this topic called Go for No. But basically, you keep making offers until the person says no. Which, if we're going back to the beginning and that sale that I made last weekend on Solitude, and they're looking for Eternity Beach, they told me no on getting both pieces, right? Because that's a $10,000 sale. So I gave them an offer for half off the second piece. And that gives me the opportunity to go for no again. But if they say no, then fine. Then they just buy the one piece. I don't get the upsell. No big deal. But you have to shoot for that no so that you know where the sale ends. Okay? So, Walter, have I tried to connect with interior designers and yada, yada, yada? Yes, I have. I almost always have a bad experience. But, this one that I just talked about with the design firm in Sammamish, it's a good experience. So, you just have to keep knocking down the negatives, and that one positive should make up for everything if you're priced right. Okay? And how would you go about doing it? So those are the two questions that I had today. So if my two people, I think it's Mike and Gerald, welcome Gerald, have any questions, then, drop them in, or I'm just going to finish this glass of tequila and yeah, man, Mike, go for no, solid advice. It's pretty good salesman advice or salesmanship advice. And, there's a level of tact, but there's also just you need to get the most ROI from the people who are going to buy from you as possible. That's how you will survive. If you keep shooting at new customers or new targets, then you're leaving a lot of money on the table with the people whom have already decided that you are worth money. And if you don't get as much of that as possible, you lose in the long run. So I already talked about the show, but I can do this really quick. I'll show you my booth. And I'll let you know. This is the process. So this was my booth at Salmon Days. And I had just these pieces up. And so results of the show are, so far I sold the piece all the way that was on the left, or I don't know what side that is for you, the boat. That piece is $4,700, and I'm going for an upsell with that to bring in a second sale from that same customer. And I also have two huge projects that I've already developed out of that show. One with a big high-end home builder, and the other with a brand new restaurant owner over across the mountain range. So nominally coming straight out of the show, it wasn't like Redmond where I had immediately closed like $23,000 of art and then followed up for another almost 12. This one is just going to be the $4,700 for that one piece, potentially 8 or more. And then those other bigger projects are going to take some time. Yeah, I mean, the numbers are just numbers. I mean, if you looked at my production costs on these, you might take a step back and be like, oh shit, I don't think I want to even get into that realm. But yeah, I think there's some big stuff coming out of the show. But if here's another thing that I was telling Angelina about. It's like going into 2018, I had huge projects on deck. One was at least 30 grand. And the other was a whole freaking building of artwork from one of my collectors, but he ended up not buying the building. So that fell through. And then the restaurant that was going to buy like a 75-inch event or Tree of Fire and then 2 or 3 other pieces for their restaurant, $20 million restaurant decided they didn't want art. They were over budget, but what's a few $1,000s? What's even a few $10,000 on a $20 million budget? But art is always a secondary, tertiary, if not completely non-important thing to a lot of business owners. I mean, once they get people in the door, they got them in the door and they don't care. So, I've had big projects on the line before and I've lost them. So with a grain of salt, I say I have big projects coming on the line or on deck right now, which could make an awesome end of my year, but may or may not actually come to fruition. So there's that. Just keeping it real. Mike, you have this face that I can't quite read. So sometimes I'm like, I don't know what you're saying when you talk to me, in text or whatever, but I appreciate you and I appreciate you being here. So I think it's really awesome. And if I had my doubts before, the fact that you're here is proof enough for me. So thanks, man. I think I've been on for like a half hour and I'll wait a few more minutes to see if any other questions pop up. I can tell that I'm already red in the face from the liquor, and maybe I will cut it off here in about 2 or 3 minutes. So this piece behind me was supposed to go to San Diego. And if you guys know about, my goals for this year were to make it to Art San Diego. Art San Diego was another really big art. So I did 3 big art expos in New York this year, and I went profitable on 2 of them, 1 out of the 3, and lost money on the other 2. So I had to skip Santa Fe, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise because of Redmond was amazing. And I'm missing Art San Diego this year. So my next big target is Miami in Art Basel. And I know I'm going to be there with my Aria collection, because they're represented by the gallery that's going to be there for me. But I want to be able to be in with my, my landscapes. So that's high on the goal. And that's why I am really going to press hard against these 2 big projects that are coming up, because if I can get those closed before November, then I can definitely get into Miami and make a killing there. So when I say getting into Miami, and I have about 2 minutes to talk about this, unless some more questions come up, Miami is a Art Basel, so there's going to be a lot of big art expos and art fairs there, and a lot of people showing up just for those art shows. And the booth that I will need minimum is about $12,000, plus printing new work, because I won't ship these. I'll just print new pieces, and going to New York or going to Miami and staying there, and then food and everything across the stay there. That's a $20,000+ commitment before I make a dime, and it's a rough. It's a big step out there to take, but I already know that I can be successful at these shows. So it's just getting that initial 20-something extra thousand that I can be willing to lose, because it's an investment and it's a risk. It's a business risk. Remember, I'm always talking about how you need to think about this in terms of business and not about you being an artist and selling art. You're just in business of selling luxury items. And going there and doing the show has its risk, and I could lose or make nothing, which would be a loss of about 20 grand. So that's my goal, not to lose the 20 grand, but to make it to Miami, do the show, and set myself up for the whole first quarter of 2019. All right. Well, that's the show. Not half as drunk as I wanted to be, but I still have time to get there. So cheers, and we will convene soon.